Good evening, and thanks for joining me on Civic Sparks, the show where we talk to civic leaders from around the globe on all topics of civic advancement. We have a great first show lined up with you for some really talented guests, but first, I want to give a quick shout out to 423media.com for producing all the overlays, the graphics, the transitions, the cool video backgrounds, and all this stuff. Visit them at 423media.com. Now, let's get to our guests. Our first guest, Mr. Rob Lloyd, is the Chief Information Officer for the City of San Jose, California, directing a diverse civic technology portfolio for the nation's 10th largest municipality. 7,000 employees, 4.8 total budget, and 85,000 businesses in the heart of Silicon Valley. And I believe, Rob, you said that your city's quest is to be as innovative as the community you serve. Welcome.
Thank you.
And coming up next is our Mr. Jerry Driessen. I'll get your name right. Jerry Driessen. Jerry's a future technology-oriented executive who draws on strong business acumen with 25 years experience in public sector, mostly in the public sector, and has a reputation for achieving measurable business results through innovation and technology. Welcome, gentlemen, and thanks for joining me.
Great to be here.
So let's start first with the obvious question. When you talk about tech and you talk about being in the public sector, what drew you to want to be in the public sector in the first place? Start with Rob.
By the way, you misspoke my name.
Oh.
And Jerry, you look like you're in a prison cell. But anyway, so what drew me in was, two things I think in particular. One is if you're going to occupy space in your community, really you should be giving to it and earning your space and delivering onto others. At least a positive message and a positive role. One of the great things about what we do, Brent, and you're in this cadre of ours, is we take these beautiful communities and we get appointed stewards of them. And our job is literally to give it back one day to someone else more beautiful, more vibrant than it was given to us. And that is a wonderful chore and a wonderful responsibility to have. Number two is when I was transitioning out, I was going down the medicine path and said, what's going to be vibrant enough to keep me interested? The ability to connect something that stays changing all the time and stays a challenge with helping people. I don't know anything else that could quite capture your attention and imagination like the work that we do.
Yeah, I agree with you. How about you, Jerry?
Yeah, it sounds cliche that I'm in government because I want to make a difference, but it's actually true. In my case, I've been I remember still my high school civics course is the one course that woke me up, and I was like, hey, this is pretty cool. Back when I was a teenager and thinking about high school wasn't that cool. And been passionate about making a difference in civic service, made a career out of it. Both my degrees, undergraduate and graduate, are in public administration, and really passionate about committing my career life to making a difference in communities, and especially local government that is closest to people's lives. If you think about it, the IT portion of it, it's all about leveraging change and improving service, right?
Absolutely. And yeah, I know. I like to go to sleep at night and know that I'm doing something good for the community rather than, putting money in people's pockets, I guess. So what kind of cool stuff you got going on in San Jose?
Ooh, do you want to go first, Jerry, or you want me to?
Oh, I'm gonna say SJ3-in-1 and CRM, and I want to beat you to it. So, yeah, one of the things, kind of talking out that theme of getting as close to the customers. I remember when I first joined San Jose, Rob took me out for dinner and said, "Do you want to run business solutions or do you want to take over the call center?" And I looked at him funny and said, "Well, I've actually ran business applications before. Why would I want to run a call center?" And and eventually, after I worked on the business application side, and the call center came to me anyway, and our CRM app SJ3-in-1, after Rob did some great work with Google.org and moving towards the omni-channel, I've been working on SJ3-in-1 now for about a year and a half, and I've come to realize that call center and our 3-in-1 platform is actually the voice of the city. It's the intake system for all city requests. And if we really want to make a difference in streamlining city services, that's the place to do it. And so we did some great things over the last year and a half on our SJ3-in-1 CRM platform. We introduced Google's AutoML language translation with 95%, 98% accuracy based on translators. And they did that by actually de-jargonizing government language, and then also doing match pair sets and training AI on how to translate better. Also implemented some new services, increased our customer service satisfaction, and really streamlined the services in SJ3-in-1 and increasing usage by our residents. So pretty proud of that one.
And the things I would add is, so about 5 years ago, we started that journey about 311 being not just a staid call center, but actually the focal point from which we do customer touch technologies. And let me toot Jerry's horn some more. So the ability to meet residents where they are, to bridge over language barriers, to connect that with insights we have into who we're serving and who we're missing, to get to an equity approach that we said in 2019 was going to be definitive of our next 3 years. Little did we know in 2020 the pandemic would hit and even make more clear that imperative. And then just the ability to touch all those technologies. There are things we can do now that we literally couldn't do 5 years ago. And then he and Herman and Kia and the teams, just the ability to create new services and iterate those very quickly, and to approach some of the community problems by digital services and a drive to digital approach. Super important in our pandemic, and it's going to be even more important as we reinvent our services heading forward, especially with that resident-centric philosophy. A couple others I would share with you, Brent, just for reference. The ability to actually take our Wi-Fi pilot that we did with Eastside Union High School District, and we piloted in one of the attendance areas, that's a Title I attendance area, 80% free and reduced lunch, proxy for poverty. And so we connected and covered about 30,000 people. And then when the pandemic hit, they said, we need you to, the teachers and parents came onto Zoom and told council, we need you to do that for all of us now. And so over the course of the last year and a half, we've now covered almost 200,000 people, have over 100,000 people using it per month. Plus a partnership with AT&T to give cellular Wi-Fi to folks, but to be the difference and the solution to a core problem in a moment of need. That's powerful stuff. And then the secure and resilient city, all the things that we have to build and the connections we have to make with our utilities. We have 7 critical infrastructure areas here at the city of San Jose. And so to be able to make sure that we stay firm and solid and can recover from an earthquake as much as a cyber attack, those are really important, all the way to kind of the internal stuff. You know, we're the leanest big city in the country. We just did our IT strategic plan on every of the top 20 cities, we're number 10, but on every resource measure, we're bottom 3 and bottom on some of those. So we have to do a lot with a little, and the only way you do that was with amazing people and stellar partnerships. But one of those things is HCI, our hyperconverged infrastructure, taking it to multi-cloud, to give ourselves a hyper-efficient way to administer 400 systems with less than 5 people. I mean, those types of approaches. And the last thing I would add is one of the gifts we have, Brent, is being in Silicon Valley is we have lots of the world's most brilliant cities or brilliant companies trying to work with the city and do civic good. So we get to partner with some tremendous folks here. And Jerry's done some incredible projects, but that's our secret sauce here, how we bridge the resource gap, is we tap really smart people and smart companies and do amazing things with them.
Yeah, that's interesting you brought that up because, speaking of the pandemic, that kind of changed the way that we work, right? So there's a lot more remote work. So you've got all these wonderful resources there. How is remote and the pandemic changed the way that your work culture is there, and how's that affecting San Jose?
So let me lay out the 3 phases that we defined right at the beginning, and let Jerry go further because he actually owned a couple of those major pieces. One is we said, this first month to 2 months when the pandemic hit and we sent everyone home and turned to a virtual organization literally in 2 days. We had a couple other areas that took a couple weeks to get fully virtual. But almost all the city we sent home and went virtual. We said the first phase is we're just re-enabling ourselves to do things the way we've always done them. Phase 2, which is going to start in parallel with phase 1, but that's actually allowing ourselves to have access to productivity and collaboration solutions that we can communicate and work together in ways that we haven't in the past, but are going to be really core in this pandemic response phase. And then we said we will not keep our eye off the ball, though, is all of this is going to lead up to how we transform ourselves in our service delivery. This is going to be a ramp, not a pit. And that ramp is going to allow us to do the digital services drive. And so we have things like internally creating the portals to make sure people can find each other, find resources and information, do business process automation. So to take a lot of our administrative processes and make them electronic, to actually expose those on the outside where we needed to do the 214 RRs for resources in our EOC, all the way to allowing folks to apply and open up outdoor seating for restaurants so that they could survive. A lot of those things, but to go from re-enabling to working better to service transformation and digital service drives, that was our path. But Jerry, what would you add?
Yeah, so we also, when we thought we were out of the pandemic the first time, which was June, June of last year, July of last year, we actually started planning. Things were looking a little bit better. We were planning for recovery, and we partnered heavy with HR. So IT, and you don't see that very often. IT, the assistant director of HR and the assistant director of IT, me. We paired together on an effort called Powered by People, which was actually located out of our emergency operations center. And so we had what that gave us was kind of the ability, authority to pull in resources into the EOC branch to start reconstructing our processes, redesigning our business processes, and moving to full automation. And at the same time, and we use objectives and key results and a very agile in the city and Scrum process. We were literally driving those around. What is it going to take to keep our employees safe and productive, and to optimize the way that they collaborate across teams in a virtual or hybrid environment? And we dedicated a lot of time to that, and focusing specifically on that. I'll be honest, when we first stood up, as Rob mentioned, the city to remote. We did it fast, and it functioned. But there were things that we knew for the long haul that we had to invest in to truly make it a highly effective environment for our staff and teams in a hybrid environment. So poured that on over the last year pretty hard.
Yeah, I know. I remember our transition. It took about 24 hours, and it was great. But it was difficult for some employees who weren't used to working remotely to kind of jump on board with that process. Did you have any issues with that?
Not really.
I
I
would.
mean, there were some people who had to adjust, but oh, sorry, Jerry. But we did. Yeah, I think the thing that cities did well was folks understood, and it became possible because the moment demanded it of us. Jerry, though, we had some difficulties. Like we didn't have enough laptops, and Jerry became laptop master for us, and was working with the Powered by People, making sure people had those the equipment that they needed, rolling out different access models like CASB, Cloud Access Security Broker, all those other things. But Jerry, you were deep in it.
Yeah, I actually was surprised the other way. I mean, we moved our call center to full remote from full on-prem, and I actually worried about that. It was amazing. Taking payment, credit card payments, and moving to remote and all of that in a short period of time went way more smoothly than I would think. Rob mentioned a little bit about getting people mobile equipment and also remote access. Those were the areas that we had to make some adjustments as we rolled into it. But it actually, from a people standpoint, what it probably proved is how agile our workforce is, and how we can actually uh, you know move into that hybrid environment, and people can adapt pretty well.
Yeah. How difficult do you think this transition is going to be to recruiting and retaining employees? Is that going to be anything for San Jose? You think?
I'll answer you in three ways. Is we were, and our ambition previously was to be competitive because we'd be the most flexible. And so we said we can't win the pay and perks battle in Silicon Valley. Our people will never own yachts. Be lucky if they ever own a Tesla S. They have to save pretty well to get there. but we could win on flexibility. And the crazy thing about, and so we had some irons in the fire. The contact center that Jerry mentioned, we had allowed them to do a day to on 2 days remotely, and so a lot of the things that we kind of had invested in turned out to be absolutely essential. Our partnership with Zoom that we did in late 2017 to 2018 when they were a small company, the productivity and collaboration work that we did to make Office 365 robust. All those things kind of came to a head, and in some ways we're lucky, and in some ways we're smart. But we thought that we could win the flexibility, but now every company is doing the same thing, right? And so heading forward, I think we still have some work to do on how we hire, build culture, make sure people are healthy, and some skills that we have to ingrain in our managers to lead, and senior managers and executives to lead differently. But I do think you can still compete, and in some ways compete better. Um, that's the second one. Third one, though, is a challenge that we've run into is to be a multi-state employer isn't something that's going to be practical for us. So we aren't going to be able to kind of tap a national workforce as much as we originally thought because of some legal analysis that we've done, at least in California. And maybe if we were a national company to start with, and there's a large cadre of people we'd be employing in every state, that would make more sense. But some of it logistically isn't going to work out as well as we had originally hoped. Other ways it's worked out better than we could have ever even planned and dreamed. But all of us are going to be figuring this out. One key thing, and Jerry and I had to figure this out for some folks, is in California, we have that disaster services worker statute that if a disaster hits, you can be appointed to go wherever we need you to go to be responding to that disaster, be a pandemic or an earthquake. And when you have that remote workforce, you over rotate towards the people who are here, and then the other ones are kind of exempted. So there are some battles and some struggles on how we figure out some of those pieces, but in the grand scheme of things, worth the travel of the trail.
Yeah, we have that same issue here where everybody that works for the city has to be living in the state of Tennessee, and we're right on the edge of Alabama and Georgia, so it's very easy for people to commute. But unfortunately, because they live, if they have a Georgia address, the city, well, we can't do it. So we have that
Gotcha.
same issue.
Anything you would add on that though, Jerry? Because we've had to figure out a couple things in a number of areas.
Yeah, it's interesting. I could bring up some examples of multi-state living because I still have a house in Minnesota. But the other thing I would say on the retention side, and I think we do a pretty good job of this in San Jose. One of our competitive edges is inspiring people on that making a difference. And I think the people in the IT department that see this stuff going on in the transformation are happy to be a part of it. And I want to say, and I'm not going to pretend that, some of the pay and some of that isn't an issue and a challenge because it is, but I do think one of our competitive things is still that sense of purpose. We believe in it. Both Rob and I are passionate about it, and you can see it on us every day. But I think all our people are too, and so I think sometimes we grab people that, quite frankly, they they want the how's that go, Rob? The fulfillable hour, not the billable hour, and
Yep.
they actually just really want to contribute the way that we do, and that is a competitive edge too.
Yeah, let me add one more thought on that one is, so the city of San Jose, when I got here, one of the things in my confirmation hearing that council said you need to fix was the IT department had had a 36+% vacancy and attrition rate for almost 4 years. And we came in and said, why are people coming and leaving? And the hiring approach, on Jerry's point, was we want to compete for those people who would work at Apple, and they come in wanting a raise every quarter or a promotion every quarter. And we said, no, that's not what we're going to do. We're going to hire the people who are going to care the most and be technically good. But if you give me someone who's technically good, we can get them to great. If you give me someone who doesn't care, I can't get them there. And so we work hard to hire and retain people who actually care about the work in a deep way, and they look out that window and they see the families that are thriving and the businesses that are growing, and that means something to them, and that they have the technical capacity and keep on building on that. Because if you have that motivating piece that I believe in the civic tech cause, because GovTech is an industry, right? Civic tech is a mission. They believe and connect with a mission. They believe and connect with being a good teammate. We've been able to build a phenomenal team. And again, smallest big city IT team in the country, and yet we can accomplish huge goals.
Yeah, and that huge pay disparity we're running through that problem right now ourselves. Actually, it's very difficult to find and retain people, especially if they you know a lot of companies around here are hiring people from California and from other places, and our housing market has skyrocketed because all the people coming out from California and from New York City buying up all the land and all the property, and it's causing the property values to go way up.
Yeah, in a good school district, a house here costs 1.5, 1.6
Yeah,
million dollars. So if you go to Chattanooga and it's like $400,000 house, I'll give you 500.
yeah, exactly. No problem. Sold. Yeah. Exactly. So switching back over to the remote topic for a second, there's something I wanted to touch base on. So how what percentage of your not just the city itself. I mean, we talk about the city, but just IT for a minute. What percentage of your department is actually fully remote, going to remain remote? Is there any people coming in and out of the office more frequently?
Go ahead, Joe.
So I mean, the number that we had during the pandemic of full remote was 40%. I would say because of Delta, we're probably still at that number citywide is 40%. That's taking in consideration police, fire, certain jobs that obviously can't be remote at all. And so we're at 40%. So that's the full remote access. We're talking about moving to hybrid forever. And right now, Rob, I don't know if you want to talk about this, but right now we're at 1 day per week in the office because of Delta again. And we're probably going to move back to 2 to 3 days in the office, and that's where at least we plan for it to be long term.
Yeah, and probably more too than three. Not all, because then we have kind of a cultural cliff where some people are here and they feel more dedicated and they feel more involved, and others who are happy to be remote. But then you see kind of dissensions that they aren't fully connected and they kind of miss out. So let me tell you three other points. Brent is one of the things we said was we're going to match the customer cadence. So if the customers have to be here 1 day a week, so are we. We're going to make sure that we always have someone on site available for them. Number two is because we followed the science, we didn't have a single infection out of 103 employees right now throughout the pandemic that's work related. There were a couple of numbnuts who did some things outside of work that they had some exposures, and sometimes not their fault. So let me not go too far, but when you practice good process and good hygiene and follow the science, you can actually stay quite safe. But heading forward, we do see people have to have some connection to the workplace and to their team, and the teams actually benefit from deciding how that cadence should work. It's like you got this day, I've got this day. We've got a project coming, so more of us are going to have to come in this period. But the work and your customer should steer that schedule. You shouldn't just set it because that's what we prefer, or because it's quote unquote flexible. And we get some pushback in some places, but the customers have been unequivocal that they have felt that we've supported them every step of the way. The survey and the operational assessment report was 83% of our city rated the IT response and support that they received as having everything that they needed and good to excellent, right? So they were extremely filled with esteem on our response, but that's where we connect that flexibility with our ability to be responsive and ingrained with our customer culture.
That's a good way of looking at it. Rob,
Yeah,
I'm
just
sorry.
want to add one more thing into that too. I just today actually did a 6-month probationary review for an employee that I'd never met in person before. Right, and did it online, and we returned our council members back to council chambers for in-person council meetings a while back, and didn't realize that they'd never been on the dais before. They had never voted for a year. So some of this, I mean, what you kind of took
Well,
for granted before.
sorry, Jerry, just to interrupt. Just to clarify, what Jerry's saying is that when we had new council members when COVID hit, they literally had never attended a council session from the dais in person. Just to be very clear about that. And so they were like, "What do I do?" You're like, "Oh my God, you're right."
Yeah, teach them how to vote in person and all that, and our employees too. I think there is a longing for kind of the human interaction and in person piece. We're all human and we enjoy. I mean, we spend a lot of time at work, and getting to know those around us in person, I think, is an important aspect, and that's why the Powered by People became a very important thing for us. But I think the only other thing on this hybrid work is to keep in mind is the human part of that, and part of that family and in person is still pretty important too.
Yeah, we were talking about that the other day regarding like our innovation district, right? Our offices are actually in the middle of our innovation district in downtown, and part of that innovation district is to have those collisions with other people. So you have those conversations, right? That's the whole idea, is to spark those innovational conversations. You don't just get together in a meeting room one day and say, "Hey, let's innovate and come up with great ideas." It just kind of happens naturally and on the fly. So when you're remote, it's very difficult to have water cooler conversations. It's very difficult to go up 2 floors in a building and visit with another group of individuals in another agency or something like that. How do you handle that?
I think part of what we said is that we do have some on-site presence. We still have our employee recognition committee and those events. It was actually, we did an online escape room that was exceedingly popular. But the honest answer, Brent, is I think we're missing some of that. And so finding that balance of the here time, that the right people have the chance to kind of have those collisions and hit critical mass on ideas. And then also, how are we managing the people remotely to make sure that they're not overextending, that they're not on for 14 hours, or they're not on for 80 hours in a week?
Yeah.
And how we prompt managers to pay attention to their people differently, because you can't see if someone is necessarily doing better or worse, but you have to care about them, and you can't see it. You can't let it also be out of mind. The research has been very clear. The only bad manager in this virtual world is the one who's trying to manage the same, or not manage at all. You have to try differently. You have to pay attention differently, and we all have that as an incumbent responsibility as a leader. But the honest answer is, I think we're missing some of the things that were brilliant that used to be there. But also, this flexibility is deeply valued by a lot of our employees, especially with Bay Area traffic, and the cost of living here. So it is going to be a balance. And Jerry's had a lot of experiences too with some of his staff, but he can give you other insights.
Yeah, we say, the closest thing we've gotten in the virtual world, I mean, we spent a lot of time. We also brought in some human-centered design learning labs and innovation academies. Brought in Brian Elms, who's with Peak Academy, Judy Brown from Civic Makers Partners, and a lot of mural boards, right? So but I will tell you, as much as I love the mural boards and bringing that together and doing human-centered design, it's not the same. So I think it is a struggle. I do think you can do some pretty creative and innovative work virtually through agile processes and the stuff we've done. But I do think there's a longing, and I know in IT, it's like when we see each other in person, it's like everybody gets a little bit excited. Remember, first time I saw another person on the elevator, I'm like, I mean, there was a
You're
point
like,
in
oh,
time during COVID, I'm like,
can't hug.
these elevators never have anyone on them. Why is there someone else on here? So anyway,
But,
it's
yeah,
kind of
how many
interesting.
stalled hugs? How many stalled hugs have we seen, Jerry? Where like someone's about to hug, he's like, oh wait, it's elbow bump.
Yeah. Fist bump. Don't touch me.
Yeah.
Right.
Actually, we did see this interesting thing where people wear different color bands. It's like, I'm okay with a hug. I'm okay with a fist bump. I'd rather you not be anywhere near me. And so we joke that might be a fundraiser idea, that you just buy the band and people know which kind of contact that you're appreciative of.
Right. And let's look a minute about the paradigm shift that the pandemic has caused for all of us. And looking at things from a municipal standpoint, does that mean that our IT budgets are going up? Does that mean that we're going to spend more on technology? Does that mean we're going to have, or you think things are going to kind of level out and stay the same?
Go ahead, Jerry.
Yeah, I mean, I think the answer is yes. In our case, we have the double down on digital as part of our strategic plan, and we just did during COVID. We wrapped up our three, and then COVID caused us to turn a 3-year plan into a 4-year plan. We extended it, but then did another 3-year plan that was just approved by council. Last month, I think, Rob, right? And
Yep.
so part of that is double down on digital, because we do realize that COVID and hybrid, it's all taught us a lot, and certainly we've used some of our ARP money or CRF money, some of those to keep up the good that's come out of COVID. That may be a surprising way to put it, but we have learned some valuable things, and we are going to continue with those. And so IT budgets going up is part of that. What I do worry about, how do you create this sustainable funding source? Because as we all know, because we've been doing this a long time, initial investments are great, but IT needs care long term, right? You don't just build it and then neglect it. So I think the only way to do that is those initial funds, and then to identify a way to sustain it.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not sure if you noticed this, but Jerry and I probably were born as twins and just separated at some point. We might not look it, but and the two things I would say in tandem with that is this is our moment. Cities, counties, states actually have one-time investments to transform themselves at scale with significant funds for the very first time. And so if you're not at that table, if you're not being called, our budget office, our city manager's office was literally calling us when our direct recipient funds for CRF landed and saying, what do we need? What do we need to do? And we turned that into an investment plan for the pandemic response. When the ARPA funds arrived, said, all right, what do we need to do now? And how do we change that ongoing stream? So because that sustaining funding is actually going to be essential. But if you're not having those conversations and being thought of first, second, or third in that conversation, those IT departments in those cities are going to be behind 5-10 years. So watch the ones that were ready to help and that received the investment, and those are the communities I think that are going to shine for the next 10 years.
Yeah, speaking of the next 5-10 years, where do you think we're going as far as tech in the civic spaces? And is San Jose going to
I'll give you three. Yeah, I'll give you three, and then Jerry's going to give you a lot of great ideas too. So, number one for us is the equity solution. So, how do we invest in technology and data that get at these really transformative questions that are affecting all urban areas now? Housing insecurity with eviction moratoriums expiring, homelessness and blight, different transportation models and modes. You got justice and police reform. No one of those problems is one department, nor is it one community. And so you've got these multi-domain transformative questions that we're actually being asked to be a part of and saying, hey, we need your help. We need you to be part of this. Otherwise, we can't do it. So number one is equity-focused technology and solutions. Number two is the optimization. So how do we make that organization that has productivity plus collaboration plus digital services connecting two of our strategic plan goals? This is our chance to actually, as Jerry said, double down on digital services and make them solve some of the access, equity, and efficiency problems that cities often have. And then the third is we see some major investment and change coming from the disaster risk, which is both kinetic, earthquakes for us, and sometimes floods, and then cyber disasters. We're going to be investing a lot of time and effort to build that secure and resilient city. And so I think those three avenues, equity, secure and resilient city, and efficiency and digital service delivery, those three categories are where we're going to be shaping our investments and our people.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, I'll add just two. One is, and maybe this is the kind of civics guy in me, but the public participation in government. I mean, that's one of the goods of COVID, right? We went from a couple hundred people going to a council meeting to like 8,000 because we literally put it in people's homes. So we're putting government in people's homes now, and I think that extends to the service delivery aspect of this too. We certainly we lit up in our CRM app, garbage recycling services, and immediately overnight, the usage just erupted because we automated it because it was convenient and people are busy and now they're in their home more than they ever have been, and you're offering the ability to participate in the home and they don't have to come into the office, and so hopefully that stays. I think that's something that I hope in the next 5 years we get more of. And the other thing is, I think culturally, we have really looked internally. We brought in Harvard Business School community partners, and they looked at that intersection between we need to have an internal focus and an external focus. We really need to think about how are our processes designed and how do our employees interact with each other in the community, and reflect from the outside in to what does the community really want from the government. So I'm hoping for greater alignment between the expectations that our communities have and what we actually deliver in an automated or in a physical way. So I'm optimistic about that as well.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of changes, definitely. All right, gentlemen. Well, thank you so much. That's our show. Appreciate you guys being here, spending some time with us, and answering a few questions.
Yeah, actually, that went too fast. But Brent, congratulations on the book. I'll be honest, I'm about halfway through it, and so I have more notes to do, and then I will get something up on LinkedIn for you here as soon as I finish.
Good, great.
Let's see. I guess I'm on page 155. 100, roughly 100 pages left.
Oh yeah,
no, actually only about 60 pages.
You're close. You're almost there. All right,
but congratulations. That's a great achievement.
I appreciate you guys coming on the show, and I'm going to see you guys in next week, actually. So
yep, see you in San Diego.
Thanks, Brent.
Don't hug me. We're going to elbow.
All right.
Have a great night.
All right, guys. See ya.
Bye-bye.
That's it for this edition of Civic Sparks. Join me in 2 weeks when I speak with Dr. Jonathan Reichenthal about his new book, Smart Cities, Blockchain in the Public Sector, and a few other topics. So on behalf of our guests and the Spark Cities crew, thank you so much for watching and participating. We'll see you next time.